Erudia, an ancient land where gods walk among men. A living, breathing, high fantasy world that we want to put into your hands. But we cannot do this alone. In order to bring you back to what tabletop is all about, combat, exploration, adventure, we need your help to bring it to life. By supporting us on Patreon, you can support this project and the cast of Moonskull, with our promise that we will answer to the only people that matter. You. Legend Seeker. Your legend starts here. Forge your path. Shape your destiny. Hello, hello. Welcome to Legend Seeker Q&A number 4. And this one on our new semi-regular bi-weekly scheduled spot on Wednesday nights, where it'll sometimes be me, it'll sometimes be Frost, it'll sometimes be Moss, or some combination of the three. Wait, what? All right, let me double check and make sure we're live. Fantasy.
I'm watching the stream, and it ended the teaser.
Okay.
Hey, there we are.
We are live. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Everything should be good, though. I have us on YouTube, and I have us on X. Kick is not working, apparently, so here we are. But yes, we will have some combination of the three here and there. Depending, it'll probably be mostly me and Froste first, and then as we get closer to release, and Moss is really kind of more in his element, and got some depth in his adventure and caught up on everything because there's a lot for him to dive into. He'll probably hop in here a little bit more. But I'm Erudi, if you're not familiar. I am the creator and author / proprietor of Legend Seeker, the tabletop role-playing game. You might also know me from Moonskull. And I'm here with Frost, my co-author, who is doing the setting guide for this wonderful adventure we're making. How you doing, Frost?
I am doing really well, and I'm also not you. So, yes, that's good.
I guess that's good. I guess that's good.
We're individuals. We don't think alike, Chrysanth.
Chrysanth says that me and you authoring things together is dangerous for some reason. I don't really understand why she says that.
The word she used was terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah. I don't get it. I feel like we have a really good ability to bounce ideas off each other and get the creative process flowing, and only good things come out of this. You know, like blood hags and blood spittle. These are all wonderful things that come out whenever we begin brainstorming together. So that's kind of what this stream's going to be about. It'll be a little bit of answering questions. You guys are welcome to submit some, and boy, did we get a lot of them this time around. Normally, we don't get this many. We got a lot this time. But we'll also sometimes have some topics that are lined up, maybe that we intend to talk about, that we wanted to brainstorm, that we weren't able to get together and put our heads together between everything else that we're doing. And this is a good space for us to be able to do that with you guys, with you guys. So, and then of course, if you have questions along the way as we're talking about that stuff, we can definitely do it. And then of course, listen, if you've been around long enough and you've ever tried to DM me, sometimes you got to do it 5 or less times before I finally am able to respond to it. It's because I'm busy. I do work, I do this, I run private games, plus I'm doing the streams on Moonskull, and I have a family life outside and beyond that. So my days are just packed. So sometimes it takes me a while to get to things. So the reason I bring that up is because this is no less true for Frost. And a lot of time he has ideas or questions he wants to ask me, and I'm not around enough to get them out. So this is his opportunity to also Q&A me and let us touch base. So it's kind of our behind the scenes meeting, but not behind the scenes, and that makes it kind of fun. So I don't know. Why don't we start with that, Frost? Actually, you know what? Because this is the first Wednesday one we've done, and we have to assume there could be new viewers or people who have not really hopped into this before. So let me talk a little bit about what Legend Seeker is. It's a D20 tabletop role-playing game that we are creating as an answer to the things that we see going on in the industry, and as just a creative expression. I've always wanted to make my own system. And I just haven't had the time or the platform to do it until recently. And I'm excited to be able to do it. So I am doing that. You also know, if you know the big three and all the other companies and what have you, then you're aware of what's kind of been done to the properties that we know and love, and how they've become so corporate and propagandized and what have you. And we just want to offer something where you get to play a game that's just about adventuring, that's just about exploration, it's just about combat. It's not about preaching to you. We're not answering to any activists or shareholders or anything like that. It's just we're making the game for you guys and staying true to our vision and our lore. And yeah. So I am writing the core system book for that, as well as the what we call the Tome of Threats, basically our Bestiary. And then Frost, what are you working on?
I am, well, this weird looking map behind you. I'm working on the world, focusing specifically on the Godlands. The in the canon and lore, the way we have it all set up, this is where the gods walked with their first creations for a very long time until the God Killer War happened. So I'm working on all the lore, and when you come up with something creepy and crazy, I'm like, oh, we can put it there. And you come up with something creepy and crazy, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write an entry for that. We're gonna put something like that in this area. And that's when we start bouncing those weird ideas, and we get things like I don't even remember what you're calling it. I came off the end of yesterday thinking about it being a clopmonculus, the little blood thing, but I'm like, I don't think that word was ever used, but that's stuck in my head.
That's pretty good too. I said gelatinous clot, but
Yes.
that's a good one too. But listen, I actually went even afterwards. I even came up with more stuff for Chrysanth. Feel free to ask her what the name of the matron of the coven is for the Blood Hags. I'm sure she'll be happy to tell you. She'll be happy to tell you.
Chrysanth, please throw that in chat. I want to hear all about it.
She was so thrilled. She was like, Erudi, I'm gonna throw away my dinner. But yeah, so that's us. We're working on this property for you, and yeah. So with no further ado, did you have any lingering questions, Frost? Anything that you've been itching to pick my brain about or get locked down? What you got?
I have one overarching question. It's going to regarding the towers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about those towers, they were created by these wizards. Are they related to the Brotherhood of the Gilded Veil in any way, shape, or form?
I didn't have them related.
Okay, good. So we can keep them separate, because the reason I asked that, because I had all that stuff down in Kiru and some creepy stuff that they had done with the jungles and some other places. These seemed more like people who were kind of concerned with their own philosophy of what they wanted to do with magic, how they dealt with the mana stream, how they dealt with the world. And that was their thematic.
Yeah. Brotherhood was more like the Jurassic Park owners trying to play God, and they think the gods are keeping they think everybody's capable of being immortal, and having the divine spark in the gods are essentially just gatekeeping that information. And so they believe by studying magic and digging deeper into the forbidden and things like that, that they can unlock apotheosis for everyone, essentially.
Okay.
And the towers are more of, okay, guys, it started out that we had like this many magic people, and we're kind of expanding out to a lot of magic people, and there's a lot of consequences to that. We need to find a way to organize this. And so they came together with the idea of trying to come up with like a singular like code or law or something to kind of govern all of this is how we're going to ethically and responsibly teach magic and practice it. But once they had that summit and tried to have that meeting, essentially they butted heads, and they could not get on the same page. So these 8 powerful wizards, instead of coming together, ended up going off and making their own towers with their own philosophies on how they were going to handle teaching this stuff, their own focuses, their own purpose.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that really fits in well with, I guess, the kind of the feeling of the world of people like I know best. People thinking they know best, that never led to any problems. It's a great point of contention, and we could even specifically, like you have the Tower of Dusk, have each one of them have their own, I don't know, it's an axiomatic, a dogmatic statement, their rule, like this is how we see the mana stream, or you never bow to this, or never do that, or some kind of a quick, simple statement that would typify kind of their thought. When we do their entries, it'd be kind of fun, because then people will be like, oh yeah, those are the guys who are like, don't show mercy, or never deal with the undead, or whatever it is. That something to sum them up, basically.
Yeah, so they each have their own thing, and like the Tower of Dusk, for example, it's not just the philosophy either. Sometimes it's a way of presenting altruism when the underlying motive is, how do we basically fund ourselves and keep this going? So we need to have a purpose. We want the money to continue doing what we're doing. There's not a lot of money in just sitting in a tower and doing wizard things. So how can we be useful in a way that communities around us will fund what we're doing and not bother us because they need us for something? And so that was kind of my thought with the Tower of Dusk, is it's in this location where the undead have been brought back, and they're kind of it's a constant flow of undead that just keep rising. So they have practiced the arts of necromancy and the arts of warding off the undead and studying that kind of stuff and trying to solve the problem and acting as a barrier between that undead onslaught to the local kingdoms, while also taking on the role of saying, well, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go to the front lines and just blow up old undead all day because they don't want to die. So give us your unclean. Give us your prisoners. Give us your political problems. Sentence them to our tower, and we'll take care of that and throw them out there for you. So yeah, each tower kind of has its own role in how they make themselves useful while also still teaching the things that they want to teach.
Great.
Mhm.
I had one quick question that just spurred another question by talking about that. When we talked about the blood magic, and we talked about most people don't try and use it because it's frowned upon, it's evil, and you can gain corruption from using it. Is that something, do you think, in the, I guess, the parlance of the world, or just by the way that they normally do things, that some of these mages or some places or things, if you carry that mark of corruption on you, like you have corruption points, that you might be able to be detected or stopped from going into, passing through things? Like there's protection from good and evil spells, or there's detection spells where people be able to be like, whoa, no, you're not coming in here, or watch that guy.
So there is, so overall the corruption is a mechanic, right? Just like hit points, things like that. So there's a certain amount of that that's invisible to the characters in the world. So it's when it gets to a certain point that they actually begin to notice things. So the way I have corruption set up right now is you get corruption points up to whatever half your corruption score is, without any real penalty. it's you can see, hey, I'm inching close to danger, but I'm not over the line yet. Once you get over that halfway point, two things start happening. Every corruption point you get after that, there's actually an attack. It's going to be a corruption roll against your will defense, and if it ever beats it, your corruption score automatically fills. You basically fall to corruption. But the other half of it is you now are picked up on detect good and evil spells as evil.
Okay.
So the towers will have a way to monitor their own people, right? They'll have their own system, but maybe they'll notice changes in behavior or whatever, and it could be that you submit a request to the high mage of that tower, and he approves it, and then they go and check this person and be like, oh, hey, we detect evil on you. We're going to put you in isolation for a few weeks while we help you come down off of your overuse of this magic or whatever. Or maybe it's maybe at the Tower of Dusk, for example, because they're out on the front lines, hours a day patrolling and fighting undead. It's an automatic scan when you get back. Like, all right, you're back. Time for the sanitation procedures. Boop. Detect evil. Oh, whoa. That's not good, dude. Isolation right away. So yeah, I would imagine every tower's got their own way of doing it.
Okay, great. No, that's cool because that's another way you could use those spells rather than just being like, well, what's your alignment? What did you actually do? You did some bad stuff.
Yeah, and that applies on the player side too, right? If you are role playing, and in game one of your characters has gone over halfway, it's a little metagamey to be like, I know you're evil now. But if you kind of like over a few sessions just play that you've noticed them acting differently, and then that warrants you to be like, you know what, you're not acting right, detect magic, so there are ways to even put that into the gameplay as players too.
Cool. It's chatting up a storm over here, aren't they?
Yeah, I can't tell me if they're responding about the blood sausages or our answers, but
there was one question in here. Horror Host had a question, but I know you said that they had a lot of other questions. He did say, how does the combat system differentiate between different types of weapon and armor so it doesn't just feel like different stats? Because that was a follow-up of how will melee combat and armor systems work, how they stay viable versus casters, because I know you wrote some of that up.
So we're handling that in a few ways. With equipment specifically, it's a little bit more difficult because there's a point where you get too convoluted. And if you have different sets of rules for every single weapon, it starts to get really... It's a lot, right? It's a lot you have to be tracking, and it's a lot. So for the most part, it's going to be a matter of what stat does that weapon use? Is it a two-handed weapon? How much damage is it doing? Do you need certain proficiencies or strengths to use it? The idea of, a greatsword, for example, requiring more strength to even wield in of itself is showing you this is a heavier weapon and it's doing more damage. So those aspects are there. Some weapons will have some special properties that will be unique apart from other weapons. For example, flails are often used for overcoming shields. So a property on a flail might be when you attack your opponent, you ignore shield armor. So anything they'd be applying to their defense that comes from their shield, you might ignore that. So that might be an example of something like that. But when it comes down to making the weapons feel different outside of mechanics, it's probably going to be aligned more on the class side. I see the questions, Chrysanth. So like if you're playing like a warrior, for example, they'll have like a weapons tree in their talent trees. And they will specifically be able to wield weapons in a more unique way, but then it's more tied to the class and just understanding the advantages and disadvantages of how that weapon works. So it'll be significantly more deadly to have a weapon in a warrior's hand versus, say, like a monk's or a rogue's or something, because they are experts of their craft, or they really understand the balance of a weapon and the advantages and disadvantages to it. Making them stay viable versus casters, I'm not sure if you mean in terms of balance or if you mean in terms of like gameplay, because I do understand like sword and board can feel pretty static sometimes. I attack this turn. I attack this. I attack this turn, right? Yeah. So the way we're handling that in this system is we have added something that for the moment we're calling momentum, and I think that's probably going to be the final name. But it's essentially a resource that you generate as you fight. And every class has their own way of generating it. If you're not a caster class, you have momentum, and this includes the social class of noble, right? So they each have their own triggers on how they earn that momentum, and you'll have a chart, a little table of about 4 lines in each class that has some really cool things you can do when you have enough momentum and you spend that momentum. So, for example, a barbarian might earn a momentum if they score the equivalent of what is called a heavy hit, meaning they've gotten several raises on their assault. And if they do that, they earn a momentum. And then after, say, they get 3 or 4 momentum, well, there'll be some smaller ones that you can spend for a smaller amount of momentum. Let's just say a big one. Maybe it's like 3 momentum. They then have an attack where they can either smash the ground or stomp on the ground or swing their weapon around or whatever, and it does like knockback to everybody around them. It does some damage and also knocks them prone. So it's a bigger effect, almost like a spell effect without it being a spell, but it's of the martial variety. So it gives you a little bit more to do and build towards and strategize around than you otherwise would in probably a traditional martial class in another. Let's see. Towers are like containment centers on a space station. Towers are more like, well, again, it depends on the tower, but they're sort of like mandatory academies. Sort of like single houses of Hogwarts or something. That all casters are supposed to, or all wizards at least. Not all casters, but all wizards.
That's what I was going to say, because warlocks and witches and whatnot can just go, what?
Yeah, they do their own thing. But if you're a wizard and you're somebody of studied magic, you're going through one of these towers. If you're not, you're considered an apostate. And you're also considered a grave threat, because people who have not practiced and studied the magic don't understand the dangers of it. And that makes them a threat to the people around them, right? So they want you to go through the study, teach you how to focus, do some sort of foci, and channel your magic, because channeling the mana stream directly through you is dangerous and can lead to you being corrupted and evil. Things like that. So each tower is its own practice, right? Some towers, you're confined to the tower. You never leave the tower until you've reached a certain level in your ability to go out into the world. That'd be essentially a level 1 in terms of gameplay. But up until then, you're like a meandering caster who hasn't quite mastered the abilities to be heroic at level 1. Some towers don't care if you leave. They want you to go in and out into the towns, get to know people, and things like that. But maybe you always have a mentor with you, kind of like a Jedi relationship. You got the master and the apprentice. You've always got someone with you. So each tower has their own. So it would just we haven't established all the towers yet, though. That is something we are still building in terms of lore. So I don't have all the specifics. But a good example would be the one that we have kind of solidified, and that is the Tower of Dusk. That one you don't leave. It's kind of akin to the wall from Game of Thrones. You're sentenced there. You go there and you don't have a choice. It's like a dungeon sentence. You are committed to being in this tower. You have a purpose to stave off the undead until such a time you have served your time, or have reached a powerful enough and lived long enough. That the biggest part about being in the Tower of Dusk is actually surviving it. But to live long enough to have earned your way out and prove you have enough power that you don't have to stay on the front lines anymore. No, they don't have 36 floors. Yeah.
It's not a reform school, Dave.
So I think if so the containment centers, I don't know if you were talking about isolation, but that's more of like that would be more like in prison, right? You have the isolation cells or whatever, solitary confinement. That's somewhere they would put you if you are clearly a danger. You know, you've you've crossed the line, you've delved too deep into the magic, you're showing signs of corruption, and they want to continue.
Yeah, Dave, I don't think the towers are especially associated with the spell tree or a specific school. I mean, the Tower of Dust deals a lot with necromancy and bad stuff like that, but also, I mean, there's nothing to stop those guys from doing fireball.
Yeah, you can. It's just like you can learn all the spells, but I haven't figured out exactly how I want to handle that for the class yet. But there might be something where, as part of the class, you pick which tower you came from, and maybe there's some sort of benefit. For example, one of the things I haven't gone into a lot yet because it's a concept we've just started drafting and ironing out. But there's a place that's going to be called the Dreamscape. It's another plane, and it's all about enchantment and seeing the future, divination, things like that. So wizards of the tower that might associate with that, perhaps they do have advantages specifically with divination and enchantment magic because they spend a lot of time studying that particular space. But it wouldn't keep you from being able to study the other spell. How about a place or quest you need to have sufficiently high evil to complete? Yes, Two's Nose. I've said since the inception of this, I hate how the other systems handle alignment. It almost seems pointless. There's nothing alignment based other than flavor in any of the systems. You could pick up a holy sword of whatever and be evil supplicant of Zerial and still use the damn sword. It makes no sense to me. So in this system, alignment does matter. There will be certain things you can only do if you're good or you're evil. There are places that will react to you differently based on whether you're good or you're evil. So it will matter. There are weapons that if you are of evil alignment or of good alignment, you just straight up won't be able to use. The weapon will refuse to grant you its power, and in some cases, may even actively try to harm you.
Wait, these weapons are gatekeeping? What the hell?
I know it's a bad concept if you ask some people.
Next, you're gonna tell me there's like sexist weapons that only men or women can use.
I'm not saying there are or there aren't, but I'm also saying that certainly could happen. We do have a gender, sex-based class with warlocks and witches. So yeah. With the only exception being, well, I guess I haven't really decided on this, but it is something that I am kind of wrestling with as Soulforged. Whether or not they have that same restriction or they can just go either way.
Yeah, I mean, being me, I would argue that the soul
is the gender. Yeah.
Them, so that's where they have their, well, that's what they are. But that's me.
So. Yeah, that's I kind of feel the same way, but I hadn't decided how I thought the mana stream would interpret that yet. Probably it'll still be the same, but
the mana stream is intriguing me. I want to hear even more about that all the time because now that you mentioned that the mana stream remembers when you do corruption things and blood magic, and it's like it remembers. Like,
the mana stream is it's one of the biggest mysteries in the entire setting. It clearly has some sort of will of its own, and it's destructive and malevolent, whatever it is. But what is it exactly? Does it have a consciousness? It seems to, but does it? So there's a lot of things that people don't quite know about that yet. Women get to wield the ball buster. Oh my god. A feline name for JJ. The horror host says, so like a warhammer have an advantage over heavy armor since they were used against heavy armor IRL. Maybe. I haven't quite. That's not fully ironed out yet. Like we're still working on the equipment and stuff. I think more than likely it would just function as a weapon, but in the right hands, aka a warrior with the right talent picked. Then yes, in that case, a warhammer would have that advantage because they understand how to gain that advantage with the weapon. Regarding viable versus casters, more balanced mostly. I still remember Godzilla and Wizard Batman. Yeah, I mean, casters are always going to be. There is that spectrum, right? Casters typically start out being a little bit squishier, and their spell list is more limited. And martial classes tend to excel more early on. And then the further you get, the squishies suddenly become pretty powerful. It's magic, right? It's really hard to make any sort of like guaranteed balance between a martial and a spellcaster, because it's all about how you utilize the spells and what your build and what have you. Um, but yeah, and you can also, so something else to keep in mind is we're going to have advanced classes. So you're going to have your base classes. So you'll have, rogue or your wizard or whatever. You can multi-class. You could be a rogue wizard. You can't multi-class more than one caster, though. You can only be one level of a magic casting, or one class of a magic casting. But then you can mix as much martial as you want. But we're going to have advanced classes, which essentially are classes that are more highly specialized. So something like an Eldritch Knight, for example. And that might require you to have a couple of skills out of Wizard and a couple of skills out of Warrior. And once you've met all the prerequisites, you can then start leveling in this advanced class. And it's a class that probably you would never be eligible for until you've reached about level 7 or 8 or something like that. But it would be a lot more focused. Now, instead of having to cobble together your own idea of what an Eldritch Knight might be, you actually have a class that excels in capturing that exact feel, and really giving you the benefit of what an Eldritch Knight should be. So that stuff will exist as well. And
question about that
Mhm.
experience, is it numerical experience or milestones, or can you do either one? Which way are you going with that?
Yep, you can do either one.
Okay, cool.
There'll be XP built in for sure, but you can also choose to do things by milestone.
So I can go and count every single gold piece, like AD&D, and every gold piece is worth 1 experience, right? And oh wait, sorry.
No, not quite.
Back
It's
in the
its
80s.
own reward. That is, yeah, kind of like prestige classes from 3.5. Yeah, it's very. I really enjoyed that concept. I was kind of sad that they went away with that once they went over to the 5th. So yeah, there'll be advanced classes similar to that.
No Echo Knight. No.
And there will be one. Well, I mean, Echo Knight would be more feasible as a prestige class, right? The reason Echo Knight was so broken in 5e was because it was literally just like a core class, and it was already overpowered from the beginning. But if you're getting Echo Knight ability starting at like level 7, that's way more balanced. So something, yeah, you could definitely do an Echo Knight as an advanced class, and it wouldn't be nearly as awful as what they did with 5th.
I think Mordecai took them all to the underworld, and there's none left. So.
You know what? I agree with that statement. Let's go with that. Fantastic Sarcastic. Have you talked about your 5th edition equivalent skill trees and how they will work? I don't know what you mean by 5th edition equivalent skill tree. You mean the list of skills? Because they didn't really have trees. They had the class, you had your subclass, and then you had a skill list. If that's what you mean. But yeah, so this is going to, and I've said this a few times, this is going to function like a D20 system. It's going to have more polish. It's going to have some unique ideas. It's going to be a combination of various different things that I've enjoyed across all systems throughout my life. But at its core, it's going to operate like a D20 system. Roll a D20, you add a modifier to it, compare it to a result. That is the core of the system. Skills are not going to be any different in that regard. There'll be a list of skills, things like knowledge, craft, stealth, stuff like that, right? And so it'll be the same concept. Now, the way it's being done is not going to be point buy or anything like that. You're not going to be allocating points into your skills. It'll be sort of like, are you training the skill? Are you not? And then apply your skill modifier, and then you'll have what's called your heroic proficiency bonus. And then all those things combined together equal what your skill is going to be, and as you level up, your skills will naturally. And you can also take edges that'll, if you really want to specialize and hone in on something even beyond that, you could take an edge that'll be like a focus of a skill. And you can add an additional +3 or whatever it's going to be at the end of the day.
Okay, so unlike Savage Worlds, where you never increase any skills unless you spend your level advances doing them, you just
Yeah,
this would be more like as you level up, you're gonna gain a little bit of skill in skills.
yeah, and you should always be seeing growth in your skills over time. So yeah, there's no point allocations or anything like that. It's just what are you good at, and the classes will have their own lists of basically class skills that get a bonus in them. You can pick a few of them, so you get like I think it's gonna be based on your intelligence score. But you pick a number of the skills that you want to be specialized in from your class, and you get an additional bonus on that. So there'll be some things you're really, really good at, and there'll be some things you're kind of medium at, and there'll be some things that you're kind of shitty at, but you still have a chance of succeeding. For example, sleight of hand, right? If you're not a rogue and you're not, you don't have any thief training or anything, you're not likely to be good at it. But if you naturally have a high dexterity score, you might still have a good chance. So, I don't know. I don't know if that's what you were looking for. Fantastic, sarcastic. Did you have anything you would add about skills, Frost, or questions of your own on that?
No, I noticed you mentioned the proficiency bonus and whatnot, and I find it interesting that the skills will definitely increase, because that's kind of always a nice passive thing to know that you're getting better. You're just passively getting better at a lot of things that you do. Things that you focus on more, you just subconsciously get better. I mean, there's something to be said in crazy deep number crunching systems like Rollmaster, when you only go up in skills when you do certain things and spend on them, or like the Cthulhu, where it's like roll on everything you possibly can, no matter what, just so you have a chance of increasing it. Can I use accounting in this scene? Why would you? Because I want to increase it.
Because I want to increase my accounting. I want to balance my checkbook right now, right before the session ends.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the other thing is it helps with balancing. And I tend to think of balancing more about player versus environment than player versus player. Because you're on the same team, you're really not competing with each other technically. But when you know that a level 8 character kind of has a ceiling, yes, they're getting better, but they don't have the crazy ability to like overly min-max. That allows you to set a good difficulty progression and have an idea of what creatures' defenses, how difficult dungeons should be, and what have you. Whereas if you do like kind of a point allocation thing that some older editions and stuff did, you really get in this case where people like hyper focus on things, and they'll have ridiculous stats. They'll be like level 5 and have like a 16 in picking locks. And it's like,
Exactly.
so it's just like, is that really realistic? Somebody who's a level 5 character being so good that, yeah, that seems insane.
Exactly. I'm gonna do the same thing I do on my writing streams. Is I'll be right back because cats.
Got it. I will move on to the next question. So are towers like the cloaks in Dragonlance? All right, so this is the part where I admit that I am not huge expert on Dragonlance lore. What I know of Dragonlance is what I ran from that Dragonlance campaign, and what I've been told is that campaign was not very accurate to the original lore. If you mean the robes from like the towers, kind of. I don't. There's no like robe color associated to it. Not really an alignment or anything either. But kind of the same concept. If you came from the Tower of Dusk, it probably says some things about you, for sure. And there is a reputation each of the towers has. So yeah, in that sense, perhaps there is some identity to wherever you came from. Let's see. Will any of these towers have a corruption level? I hope not. Let's put it this way. If you're to the point where the tower itself has a corruption level, something bad's happened. Something really bad's happened. There was a mass corruption event or something. The high arch wizard has fallen and failed to do his duty to protect his people, that tower is probably like lost. All right, you're now probably in like some dark corrupt tower scenario, and the tower is probably not going to exist anymore by the time it's done, right? So no, a tower should not have a corruption level. It could be interesting though, have a ninth tower, and maybe that actually did happen to it. Interesting thought. Fantastic, sarcastic. So a paranoid rogue over-specializes insight will get more paranoid over time. Yeah, you just get better naturally at reading people. Everybody does. And that's part of what I mean. Everybody, no matter what, you're going to passively over time, after going off on enough adventures and interacting with enough people and doing enough things, you're going to progressively get better at reading people no matter what. But somebody who's specialized in insight is going to be better at it. They're really going to get, they're going to naturally grow, but they also have this built-in advantage of having specialized. Yeah, so one of the questions that they asked Frost while you were gone was, do towers have corruption levels? I indicated that no. If they had a corruption level, something went wrong. Right? That means...
Very wrong.
Yeah, that means some mass event happened. The high wizard is probably dead, or he has failed somehow, or he is corrupt himself and he has failed his people. Some sort of betrayal's gone on the inside. Like, corrupted tower, if there's a corruption level in a tower, that's a lost tower. And it's probably not coming back. Which did it gave me an idea. If there was a ninth tower and that is actually what happened to it.
I think that'd be fun.
But maybe there is a tower out there that fell, and now it's a place of darkness people don't go to.
The lands and area around, I think it's Rabasu or whichever one of the temples that the Brotherhood had. The land around that place is definitely going to have some of that seeping, something bad.
Yeah, so yeah, there could be a lot of things. There are a lot of ways we could play with that. So maybe we will. Maybe we'll.
I think also in the underside, if you aren't corrupted, it might be hard for you to do things or get in certain places. But if you are corrupted, since it's kind of a backwards world, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. The bad guys don't get a tower. I'm not saying the bad guys don't have any towers. I'm sure there's other bad towers out there in the world, and on other planes and what have you, but they're not a member of the official 8, right? The 8 towers, that is an entity of towers that have a reputation.
Malach, the Black Tongue, the Lich that I have way up in the north, that Murmur goes and does work for, the little hairless Kinnel, the pitiful little creature. He's not a nice person at all.
Probably not
really a person anymore.
And he's got a tower, so there you go. Darth Dave says, okay, now I want to ask if there's only one physical tower for each of these towers. Yes, not necessarily. It could be known as like I'm gonna make up a name, the Starlight Tower, but maybe that particular tower is a tower and like name only, right? But perhaps it's a couple of towers in that particular spot. We'd have to iron that out, but it's possible that some of these towers have other structures than the main tower. It could have just started out as a singular tower, maybe even grew over time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, a school that I had that at Ustia, the one that the wizard Ulpia made, the one that he was trying to bring all those wizards together at the beginning. They're all like, yes, we're going to build this beautiful place. We're going to teach magic, and it's outside the cities, and we're safe from everything. And then they're all like, we're doing it this way, right? And they're all like, no. That's when they all argued and split and set off. His place is more like an actual school with, extra buildings and the tower and everything. And it's more like a traditional, like what you'd expect in that kind of a piece of fantasy literature, to have a number of buildings and other things where they've lived and learned in for the last, 800 to 1,000 years, whatever it had been.
Yeah, and maybe some towers are more open. Some of them might be more closed off, and they have certain standards on who they bring in and how they bring them in. Some of them might be more open, like anyone who thinks they might have magical ability, you have a shot here. Come check it out, kind of thing. It'd also be interesting to maybe have a tower that's more of like kind of like the Grey Wardens, Dragon Age in a sense. Like once you decide to join, you're enrolled, and then it's either you pass the trials or you die. There is no leaving. So there could be some interesting ways we can play with that for sure.
The upside is if you do die, no loans, nothing to pay back.
Exactly, no loans. Just finished driving. So can women not be warlocks because their souls are worthless and a man's and demons don't want them? You know what? I think that's a really good answer to the lore reason in universe. The real reason is because witches and warlocks are their own organizations, and they have chosen to be exclusive in some way. So covens with witches are matriarchal. They don't want men involved, and they have their own beliefs about why women are more connected to life and to the universe and things like that, and they don't want men involved. Warlocks are the same thing. They think only men are capable of handling a certain kind of power, and they're very selective. So they have these tight societies, and they keep their secrets. And there's some things they both have access to. So the way that particular class is going to work, just like all the classes, they're going to have talent trees, and there's going to be like 3 of them that are either side can use. They're kind of in the middle, so a warlock or a witch can get to them. And same with their patrons. There's a few patrons that can all access. And then there's going to be an exclusive warlock tree and an exclusive witch tree that only those varieties get because of their secret societies, and a few patrons that are only unlockable via one or the other because of the way that they practice their magics and what their belief systems are. Witches are lesbians and warlocks are gay. That could be it too. Whatever, float your boat, as they say. Well, yes, this is true. These women have no souls. All right. I do have a lot of questions that were submitted before the stream. I'm going to start grabbing some of those because, boy, were there a lot. So these are courtesy of... I don't know if this is Wolf spelt differently, but it's Woloff25. I swear his name is Wolf whenever it's not in this at form. But he said, I missed this live, so I will leave a few questions for the next one. Are there any weapon mechanics? Okay, so we did kind of already talk about that, so we'll skip that one. Armor is AC? Kind of. So there's going to be 3 defense scores in this system. You're going to have your reflex defense, you're going to have your fortitude defense, you're going to have your will defense, and those will be targeted differently. So certain magics like mental effects and things like that are going to target your will. Things that are like based around poison or concussive force or things like that are going to target your fortitude. Things that you could try to dodge like flames or things like that are going to target your reflex. Armor isn't going to just be a AC score, an armor class score. It will most likely apply to your reflex, but in some cases will also add to your fortitude. And in very, very rare cases, usually magical armor or magical robes or something like that, it could even possibly add to your. So armor could apply to any one of those defense scores. Yeah, I know it's spelt. I don't know if he wants to be called Wolf or he wants to be called Woloff. I've never really think I've had to say his name out loud, but I always think of Wolf when I see it. Shields, how it works, AC bonus, same thing, same as armor. I don't remember if I heard before anything about a crafting system. There will be crafting. I haven't decided exactly how I want that. If there's something I'm famous for in my private games and in my streams, I hate crafting systems. I think they're usually really bad. I have yet to see one that I think is a good crafting system. It results in like a lot of meaningless checks and having to like decide values of things. And I I don't know. It's usually just not very fun to deal with, and they're usually very convoluted, and you have to like dig in the books a lot. So I'm trying to think of a way to do crafting that's not going to be like that. But we do have a crafting skill. I just haven't decided exactly how it functions yet.
Well, and you have to do it. Almost always has to be done between sessions and stuff, because otherwise everybody's just sitting there like,
Yeah, making another
"What do
crafting
you
roll.
mean?" Okay, I'll be over here just staring at the wall or falling in a hole. Like Dave would fall in a hole while you're doing crafting rolls.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I want to do something a little bit more simple, but I'll have to dig into it a little bit. The other thing is crafting systems are also they're both frustratingly specific while also being frustratingly vague at the same time. Like they don't tell you where you can get a lot of this stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, well, how do I make this thing? Where, what creatures or animals are dropping these things that I need? And then it's all on the GM to like figure it out. And
you could add it to every gear entry for mundane gear. Just say the DC check if you have this skill with a specialty is this.
yeah,
End of story. It's going to cost you this much in materials base, and let your DM figure out the rest. When it comes to making a magical, because there's one thing you've noticed in our Thursday night game: people like skin and stuff. What can I make out of this? Like,
yeah, they always want everything to have like different properties, but the books never cover any of that.
yep.
So it's just like a good example is in Frost Maiden. There's these crag cats that when you cast spells at level 3 or lower at them, their fur pelt repels the spells back. So after they kill them, naturally the first thing people want to do is take their pelt and try to turn it into some sort of like coat that repels spells. The system, it doesn't cover that at all. It doesn't cover how to do that in crafting. It doesn't cover that in how to even enchant. There is no enchanting rules in 5e. And then the creature itself makes no reference to whether that's possible or not. So it's all on the DM to suddenly invent a system. So if I'm going to do a crafting system, I want it to be something that is not a chore for the DM to do, and is also not like real life science for the player to have to figure out. So that is something I'm still working on, but there is a crafting skill. The exact specifics of it are something that I'm finding. Any interesting info about stealth? It's going to function pretty much how you expect stealth to. The only thing that I'm putting in on the system that would be of any, I guess, difference is more or less a home rule that I've always used in my private games anyways, and that's just you move, then roll stealth. That's the only like new thing I might be adding into it. I don't even know if it's new. There might be other systems that have already done that. But I think it just takes the metagaming out of it. If the idea is you have already moved and now you're deciding how stealthy you were versus rolling your stealth, seeing how good or bad your stealth is, and then deciding how you move. I think that is... Yeah, I think and a lot of people do. It happens all the time. They roll their stealth. They see they got a 3, and suddenly they only move 1 square for some reason. Weird. So yeah, that's the only thing I could think of about stealth that would probably be of any immediate interest. Social interaction mechanics, yes, obviously you'll have persuasion and deception and insights and things like that, sense motive rather. There's 2 mechanic systems for this that or go beyond that. There is going to be sort of a social, almost like a mini game type thing. That's like a series of skill checks to pass a social encounter that the GMs can use. And then as a class, the noble specifically has a lot of mechanics that are focused around social interaction. In fact, even in combat, the way they earn their momentum is through persuasion and diplomacy checks in combat, trying to distract people and inspire people and things like that. So 2 ways you can look at that. You mentioned before about monsters feeling like monsters, so examples except for a giant's falling would be nice. Which reminds me to ask, if a giant with a giant club attacked gnome, would that going to feel... Oh, is that going to feel like it mattered? That's a lot of question. All right, so yes, we want giants and things like that to, depending on the size of the giant, to feel like it is a different kind of threat because of everything it's doing. Like a club in the hand of a giant is not a club like it is in the hand of you. It should feel more like you're getting hit by a tree, which probably means when they attack, it's either got splash damage mechanically, but representing hitting everything around it, or an area of effect attack or something like that. There will also obviously be size scale penalties and things like that. So yeah, if you get hit by the giant as a gnome, you and probably all your little gnome friends are all getting squished, and it's not going to feel good. But at the same time, because you're a gnome, you're kind of like a gnat. Might be a little harder for it to pin down hitting you in the first place. So there is a give and take to that. Another example of monsters feeling like monsters. Oh, I don't have I wasn't expecting Bestiary question. I don't have it open in front of me, but I'm trying to think of them. Like the Rudy Poo, for example. It's not just a tiny creature that has small stats and does small damage or whatever. It's a scavenger. It's not really made to be like a combative creature, but it is made to be a nuisance and to show that it's fearful and has a defense system for being fearful. So when you startle them, the first thing they do is they spray the stuff out, and it can blind you and incapacitate you and make you stuck. But at the same time, after that, they also let out this shriek that can be heard out to 300 feet. And the idea behind that is they're attracting predators to come take care of the predator that was trying to eat them, right? That's their defense mechanism that they have built in naturally over time. So that's kind of the idea. We want the creatures to have mechanics that tell a story about the creature, and not just, this is a mouse, so it has 1 hit point and it bites and does 1d4. This is a giant, so it has 500 hit points and does 12d6 damage. Like, it needs to be more flavorful than that. So that's the idea. That's what we're going for.
I do have one quick question while you're talking about monsters.
Yeah. You got any monsters?
When players do DC 10, DC 15, DC 20, when they hit those target numbers, when they use something, do monsters have something equivalent, or do they not? Like if they roll higher than their normal DC to do something.
Yes. So monsters are going to operate slightly different than players, obviously. They don't really have classes, things like that. But yeah, they will have, first off, they use spells automatically, spells just by default, pre-rank. Damage, same thing. When you deal damage and you get a raise, you automatically deal extra damage. So monsters do all those same things. Now, in terms of like building momentum and class mechanics, they don't do quite all of that stuff. But they might have individual monster abilities that tell you, if this monster scores a heavy hit, this happened. Or, if a monster gets a raise on a stealth check, this happened. But it'll be built specifically into the monster. Also worthy of note, the way monsters and players differ in hit points is different too, right? Players are going to have stamina points and hit points. Monsters just have hit points, but they don't do the whole stamina system. So they will function differently. Mounted combat, is that something to be reckoned with? In the right hands, it would be. I will say with mounted combat and just mounting animals specifically, I aim to do it better than 5e did it. 5e is very vague. It doesn't clarify what counts as an action and when you can actually do the things, and when the changes and who controls the mount and when you don't control the mount actually occur in a turn. It was very, I hate mounting stuff in 5e, and so I've taken note of that, and I want to make it a little bit better on here.
I just want to roll animal handling and tame everything, or try to tame anything I come across. Any creature, anything that's animalistic, monster. Can I tame goblins? Come on. I can fix them, right?
Probably not goblins. But yes, I mean, it's a good example of a skill and because skills can get raises too. So something like a handle animal type ability. If you were to confront a wolf and the wolf is hostile to you, a normal success might make it go from hostile to like defensive or something. But if you were to get like every 2 raises or something, it might actually take it to another level. So maybe it goes from being hostile to indifferent or fearful or something like that.
Why did you choose wolf?
It's just on the brain because the person whose question I'm answering, okay?
I'm just asking for chat because I'm sure they're interested in knowing why you specifically went immediately to a wolf.
It's not my fault, all right? It's Wolf 25's fault. Something like alignment. Maybe you spoke about it before, I don't remember, but is it going to be something that describes a personality and guides how one should act? Yeah, of course. My philosophy on alignment is if you took your character's whole existence and like put it on a timeline, and you would reach down to that timeline and grab them at any one point in their most current existence, what would you pull them out as? And that would probably be what your actual alignment is, because nobody's always evil, always good, or always whatever. But where do you tend to trend is what your alignment is considered. And in the system, mechanically, it means something. So changing your alignment isn't just like a social choice. You got to prove it to your keeper. So if you've been playing an evil character and now suddenly you've got the hots for some NPC who's a goody-goody two-shoes and you want to turn your life around, good. Go be a good character finally. But it's not going to be immediate. You're going to have to earn that. You got to earn your alignment. So yeah, alignment will be very important. How much tactical will the combat be? Pretty tactical. It's a map-based grid system, D20 tactical system. So it's going to be about as tactical as most D20 systems, perhaps a little bit more because it's more modular along the lines of something like D&D 3.5 versus 5e. Interaction with the environment. I'm not sure what that's kind of a vague question. Yes, you can interact with the environment. It's an RPG, right? It's whatever you can kind of imagine you can attempt to do. Initiative, standard D20. Yep, initiative is a skill. You roll it. That's the order you go in. Even though I really do enjoy Savage Worlds, I like the initiative system in that actually a lot. I like that it changes every round. We will probably not go that route here. You'll roll your initiative and you'll just kind of stay in that order. I think it's a good system when you're using automation. I think it's a lot harder to deal with probably at a table. I've never played Savage Worlds at a table though, so I haven't gotten a hands-on try. How hard is this to actually keep up with? But
depends on if you have a person who loves math at your table, really.
Yeah, because you have to because think about it, it's not just it's getting all the cards back from everybody, shuffling, revealing out the cards, everybody turning over their cards, figuring out what the order of the cards is, and then asking if anybody wants to spend pennies to draw new cards. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the table, I feel like that's a much longer process than what you do at the VTT.
Yeah, because what I used to do when we did a card-based system is on the GM screen, I had a little piece of paper, and I would just basically take it, like piece of paper, and I would fold it over like this on top of the GM screen, and it would have everybody's name for their character, and I would just put them in order from first to last, and then when the order changed, I just move everybody around and just do it.
Oh, interesting.
Because it helped everybody look up and go, oh, wait, okay, because from them, it was like looking, left, right, blah, blah, blah. And it was one way to just stave it off. People were like, wait, I didn't get to go. I'm like, yeah, you did. You were the first. Oh, yeah, we're still in a turnover.
Yeah, and that could change, as we're messing with this. Maybe we decide we do want to try that. But in terms of how the actual initiative is determined, it is a skill. It is roll. Standard.
And boy, wait until you figure out what you're doing with holding actions or not, because the difference between holding an action in a D20 system and going on hold in the Savage World is like
it's very different. Yeah, it's very, very different. Attacks of opportunity, is it like D&D where anyone can do it if engaged? Yes, everybody's capable of doing attacks of opportunity. In fact, I would say in Legend Seeker there are more ways to earn an attack of opportunity. So it's not just if someone leaves your space in Legend Seeker. If somebody is a caster and they cast a spell in your physical space, that requires concentration, semantic movements, speaking, and focusing on your spell. You open yourself up to an attack, essentially. Or if you do something that would clearly put you in a distracted or vulnerable state, such as, I don't know, you had dropped your sword on the ground last round and now you're bending over to pick it up. Something like that could open you up to an attack of opportunity. So there are more ways to earn attacks of opportunity as well, and there are some edges that enhance that ability. So there are some, most people only get one, but you can take edges that let you get more than one attack of opportunity. Grappling mechanics. It's going to be... I'll put out more information on the grappling mechanics a bit later. Like, I know how I want them to function, but I'm not quite ready to explain that here on the stream. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be an element of that that restricts you from moving and gives you penalties, that kind of thing. It's going to be something that everybody is able to grab somebody, but then you can build upon that with edges and skills to be a much more effective grappler. Exposure to elements, hunger and exhaustion. Yeah, there will certainly be consequences to being exposed to the elements. That is, one of the key pillars of a good tabletop role-playing game is exploration, and exploration comes with its own perils and dangers. Those would certainly be among them. There you go. That is all of Wolof 25's questions. I think I nailed all of them. Any of those that you would expand on, or did they inspire additional questions, Frost?
No, I think I asked my additional questions in the middle of all that. It does make me think of all the tangential stuff that people love doing in games, which sometimes I think is better to not have a system for and let the DM decide, which is probably good. Because, like, did you ever play Rollmaster, the old Iron Crown Enterprises stuff?
No.
Some people called it Chartmaster. Like, every kind of weapon type had its own critical tables, and when you were fighting against a super large creature or had magic criticals and stuff, there were different charts, and every time you hit, you had a chance of doing all
that's what I was. That's what I was saying earlier. After a point, it's like there's too many systems within the system. It's all good and well to want things to feel different and act different and whatever, but there's a point where you've kind of gone too far. If you're spending time looking up every single weapon to figure out how it even functions, you've gone too far, in my opinion. Yeah. So if the weapons, you just need to know their damage and you need to know what you need to be able to wield them, that's good enough. And then if you want more complicated specifics, put that on a class or put that on an edge, something that is on your character sheet and you don't need to open the book for.
Exactly. You can look at your sheet and be like, hey, if I get a 20 on my roll instead of the 10 or 12 I need to hit or whatever, I could cause, bleeding or an extra wound, or I could do something, whatever the hell it is, an additional thing, or I could, tire them out. Because, that kind of stuff is very interesting, but having it all on the sheet where you don't have to look through 14 different books and you don't have to read 15 paragraphs thinking, oh, wait, how does this apply to... How does Entangle work? I'm just saying.
And if you ever went the route of a purely digital system, like if you had no intentions of there being a table element, you could definitely get more complicated because the system would do the heavy lifting. But with books, I don't think you should.
No, it gets a little crazy. And I do have one quick question is, in something like Savage Worlds and a few other systems and stuff, you can increase your traits by advancing. You're like, I'm more agile, I'm more whatever, because I spent my advance on it. In D20 systems, generally, you can only do that when you get to a level where you take a feat and it increases one of your stats. And some other systems, once you got your stats, absolutely no way to increase them unless you get an item or something like that. Is which way are you kind of leaning for all of this?
So I'm not going the way of 5e. So it's not going to be you reach a level and you have to pick whether you want an edge or you want to increase stats. Instead, there are certain levels you get one of those things. So there will be levels where you specifically will gain an edge. There will be levels where you specifically get to increase your stats. It'll be pretty much those two things. Actually, hold on. Let me rephrase that a little bit. The stats, the core abilities, will be confined to when you level up on the basic table. There will also be kind of what I will say are wild card free space edges. You can take whatever edge you want as long as you qualify for it. And that'll all be based on the core level chart, which your total level, right? And then the classes themselves will have their own level chart. Obviously, that shows when they get their different functions and abilities. And those will also determine when you get your talents. And there'll be extra spots where you can get edges. But those edges are restricted. It's not a free space. You can only pick edges that are viable for your class. There'll be a list of those. So
good. All right.
Yeah, so when you look at your class, it'll be like the warrior's edge chart. And so you can look and see, okay, these are all considered edges that are specific or that can be used on these warrior edge gains. So yeah, so you'll have lots of opportunities to get edges for sure. And but depending on when you get those edge, if it's like level 2 or something like that, those edges are going to be specifically from the warrior list. But then there's going to be like a certain interval on the main list, like every 4 or something like that, where you get to basically do an open edge, and it can be any edge, even outside of what your class restricts you.
So on the main edge chart, it will be everybody when they hit a main class level 4 or 6 or 8 or 12 or 15 or whatever.
And regardless of whether you're multi-class or
like
not.
If you're a noble that's level 3 as opposed to like a wizard that's level 3 or 5 or whatever, will you be getting different things at different levels? Like a level 2 wizard might get an edge or whatever you want to call it, but the noble might actually get an increase? Or is it always going to be when you hit level 3 in your class, you're going to get an increase?
It will generally be about the same. So there's 2 purposes to this. For the most part, the pattern is going to be approximately the same. Every 3 levels, you'll get your talent. Or every odd level, you'll get your talent. Every even level, every 4th even level, you'll get your class edge. Some classes, for example, like the warrior, might get a few extra edges because they're going to be more combat based and about being like a refined warrior. But the main reason for this is when you level up as in the main chart, it really doesn't matter because you combine all your classes together. So if you're a level 3 warrior and a level 3 rogue, that's still a level 6 character. So that chart only cares about whether you're level 6 or level 5 or whatever. The character charts matter because if you take a level 1 rogue and you get a talent as a first level rogue, and then you go take a barbarian level, you immediately get another talent because level 1 barbarian gets a talent. Right. So you're getting more talents, but you're getting your edges later. You're kind of getting the higher skills later.
Because you're not specialized in focusing and makes sense.
Yeah, so it does make a difference in terms of so yes, if you were to compare directly and you went full level 20 on a class, they're probably going to get their stuff about the same time. But once you start multi-classing, that changes because you'll be getting those skills and feats at different intervals than you normally would have.
Okay, cool.
All right.
That's a good question, Dave. Will I go unconscious because I rolled too many critical failures?
Maybe.
That's just you, Dave.
Maybe. I will say I like the element of the idea that anybody can fail at anything, even if you're really good at it. Also, there's a chance you could automatically succeed at things, even if you're not great at it. And one thing I think they took away in recent editions, and I don't agree with, they left the natural ones on attacks, but they took them off for skills. So if you have like plus 12 and something, you at that point most cases just can't fail. There is no natural one. So I'm returning that back. If you get a natural one in anything, that's just a failure. Even if you are really good at it and you normally could get like a plus 20 in that skill, there is always a small chance something goes wrong. And that's what the natural one represents, right? That's the whole point behind it. So I'm reinstituting that. And I even go so far in the book as part of the core mechanics section, which is like in the very opening of the book. It specifically says it's a D20. You add a certain skill modifier to it. The result compares to a number. You succeed or fail. Natural 20s are successes. Natural 1s are automatic failures, and both come with a narrative consequence, as well as, in a lot of cases, mechanical. But there's always a narrative one as well. So when you get a natural 1, it's not just that you failed. Anybody can just miss, but it's that you failed spectacularly, right? You fumbled. So there is a consequence to whatever happened. Maybe instead of you were trying to like turn the levers on the machine in a time sensitive situation in combat, instead of just failing to get it right, you actually broke the lever, something like that. And that's it's not set in stone. Like the text is going to tell you this is what the consequence will be, but that's for your keeper to figure out and decide with you what is the narrative consequence of this failure or this success.
Makes sense.
It is a 5% chance. That is true, but there is just a certain amount of game mechanics you can't get around. I mean, even if you change it to a D100, you don't fail cooking 1% of the time either. And also, you gotta remember, this is under pressure situations typically. We do have taking a 10 in this system. So if you're not under pressure and you're doing something, it's very different. If you're in combat, though, you don't get to take a 10. So it's just in combat, yeah, there is a chance because of pressure, you could mess up. And in this case, it's a 5% chance. But if you were to do that same thing, I don't know, like you said, cooking, I don't know why you'd be cooking in combat, but if you were cooking in combat, you got a 5% chance you would fail that automatically because you were under pressure to get this thing cooked while your friends are being slaughtered. But if you
hold them off, I've almost got the souffles done.
Yeah, maybe it's a puzzle you can only complete by frying an egg or something. I don't know. Meanwhile, the undead are swarming you.
I want a perfect soft-boiled egg. Go.
Get them. Yeah.
Wait, what?
But if you were doing it outside of combat, there's no pressure, there's no time limit, there's nothing you got to worry about. And yeah, you can do what's called taking a 10, and it's essentially you just assume you rolled a 10 and add your skill modifier to it, and if that would mean you succeed, you succeed. So yeah, that makes sense in that capacity. But once you're under pressure, there is always a chance you will fail, and that's why I think the natural one concept is important, because it just puts that level of unpredictability and a little bit of humor too. Whenever you're extremely stealthy rogue, who always gets plus 30s on his damn roll, suddenly botches it and screws over the whole plan. That's what makes role playing fun. Is I tend to find the failures advance the story and more interesting. But again, we account for in the system natural 20s also come with a narrative consequence. So it might not mean automatic success. Okay. For example, in combat, if you're trying to persuade somebody to back down and they're like a true believer, right? Maybe they're a true believer. Nothing you're going to do is going to actually convince this person to swap sides or to give up or whatever. But you roll a natural 20. Even though it's not an automatic success, you didn't convince this person to do what you did. The keeper is going to give you some sort of narrative boon. Maybe there's a moment of hesitation that gives everybody an opportunity to do something, or maybe you don't convince him, but his right-hand man suddenly seems to have doubts and turns against him with you. That kind of stuff.
So to that end, I guess when you're doing skills, can somebody assist you?
Yeah, you can do assisting.
Cool.
Yep, you can definitely do assisting.
Excellent. Can someone hinder you, like hand you the wrong ingredients and screw you over?
Sure. Yeah. In fact, if you're playing with Dave, that probably will happen.
Here's the Eye of Newt. The what?
They love screwing each other over on purpose. Dave says, can I speak with plants, or even better, can I speak to the rocks and dirt? Well, there is a spell that lets you speak to plants, yes. I don't have any spells that let you speak to rocks and dirt, but who knows? Maybe that'll be coming in the future. Fantastic Sarcastic says, will there be explicit differences? I'm going to move this over. I'm not looking away. Will there be explicit differences and similarities between versions of enemies of the type? For example, will there be explicit differences between Frost, Fire, and Hill Giants to make them unique? Yes. Yeah. That's especially going to be true of dragons. One thing I hate about 5e specifically, I'm not as sure as Pathfinder 2e because I haven't really looked at how they do dragons, but 5e dragons all have the same exact stats and same exact legendary moves, same exact everything, and really the only difference between them is what they resist and what flavor their breath is. And I think that's so boring. That is so boring. When you fight dragons in our system, each type of dragon is a very different fight. I have already statted out most of the dragons at this point. It's a very different experience. If you fight a red dragon versus a diamond dragon, it's like two entirely different boss battles. The red dragon, there's what you expect. Fire flying everywhere. It's swooping around. It's ferocious, intimidating. You're having fear checks because it's just like being so aggressive. It has dragons in our system can spell cast, so it'll have some fire-based spells and things like that. The diamond dragon, because its scales are different, has certain advantages against slashing and weapons and things like that. And it has the ability to refract itself, so create kind of simulacrums of itself in combat, almost like an echo, but far less dangerous in terms of it's not like fighting two of the same dragon, but still strong, and you still have to contend with them. And they can also reflect spells. So because the diamonds reflect the magic you're throwing at them and have a chance of turning it back on you. So yeah, it's very different. When you fight dragons in our system, they'll have a few core things that are the same. They can fly, they can bite, they can claw. Other than that, it's no two dragon types will feel the same. And some are certainly more dangerous than others. If you get hungry in the game, can you eat a Erudi poo? Why not? Even comes with some frosting inside for you. Frost's face. Alaska Jeff said, maybe you covered this already. Will there be non-dice skills in the game? I'm assuming you mean things you don't roll for. Not that I've planned anyway. There might be some coin flip stuff, but I haven't really put anything in there like that yet. It'd have to be something pretty specialized. Like if we ended up ever doing some sort of like advanced class that was like kind of a huckster, maybe, maybe some sort of card system. But that would be above and beyond the core game, I think. But speaking of cards, we intend to, whether it be at launch or later, we're going to have cards, not necessarily initiative cards, but we're going to have power card packs that you can buy. So if you know you're the kind of player that's going to be playing witches and warlocks, or you're the kind of player that knows you're going to be playing a wizard or whatever, you can basically buy a box of cards for that class that has all of the expected spell powers that you could possibly use. And actually physically have in your hand as you play the game, keep track of what spells you're using, and it'll have the stats right on the card, so you know what the chart is. You don't have to go look it up in the book. So those things will be out there as well. With, of course, a feline named JJ wants to know, will endowment rolls be required during character creation? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you have to know, right? You absolutely have to know.
Do you? Is this like the old advanced D&D when they added comeliness as a stat?
Yes, comeliness. Yes.
Oh my God.
You said something the other day that made me think of I want to try someday in the future, when you were like, I'm surprised my character even survived character creation.
Yeah.
Which I know I'm told in the Traveler game or whatever, you can actually die during character creation, which is funny.
I've lost characters during character creation in that system.
Which I find hilarious. But I would actually like to do, if we ever do a new show in the future or something, a stream where one of the characters can actually die during character creation or something. That would be really funny. That'd be really
I like it. I'm surprised that nobody did something to end up causing one of our characters to be harrowed for that system, because I mean that's technically what being harrowed is. You're dead. You came back.
Yeah,
And
I
now
was
you've got
surprised
problems.
nobody took Harrowed. I really thought somebody would go for that. You guys
So
are
close.
in the Death Rattle game. You guys are kind of a weird group.
We're a weird group. My guy is essentially, if you were to try and play maybe an Oath of Redemption paladin in a
Yeah,
Western setting, but also doesn't want to really fight guys if he doesn't have to.
you're kind of like a D&D group that was like, you know what? We don't need a fighter and we don't need a cleric. Let's just go with all the oddballs. That's kind of what it feels like.
Let's do it.
You guys don't have any gunslingers or anything like that, so it's going to be interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at my character because I realized that when I took one of the edges I was like, oh wait, that's not the one I was meant to take. I'm like, oh, I gotta go fix that before Sunday. Oops.
Darth Dave says, "Is there a flirting skill?" Yeah, it's called persuasion. Just declare you would like to flirt, and most likely you're going to be using persuasion. Who
Is it
knows?
deception and persuasion.
You
So I
know,
can
you
deceive
could
people?
go deception too.
Okay.
If it's a woman flirting, it's almost guaranteed to be deception. Actually,
Hmm.
and I just chased off half our audience. We did also have some questions in Discord. I'm just trying to find where the hell they were. I know I saw it somewhere. Feedback. Oh my God! This eccentric did 28 questions.
I don't know if you're gonna get through all those.
Some of these might just be. We'll skip it. But some of these are lore questions, which is interesting. We've been doing a lot of mechanics questions. He asks, are the mountain passes where the Battle of Crimson Skies took place a significant historical site?
They are. It draws, for whatever reason, that area is one of the areas that draws the Soulforge to it. And there are many of them who just are there and are stilled because this was the site of the end of their basically enslavement, really. And so, yeah, that definitely significant. It's definitely got stuff going on there. And if you go there, you will see a lot of Soulforge just stilled for no apparent reason. Nobody knows exactly why. They don't even know why, but that's where they go. And supposedly some of them have come out of being stilled, but a lot of them haven't.
There you go. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see. So just to give you an insight a little bit on the creative process too, I've decided a lot of like the lore and like setting and like what I want it to be. And essentially what I've done is I've then taken, hey, this is what I want, and I hand it to Frost, and then Frost makes it better. He expands on the basics of the lore and makes it more interesting, builds it out, and sometimes even pulls his own stuff out of his hat and throws that in too. And it's always been I have the veto power to be like, nah, that's not going to work, but I haven't had to do that because the stuff that Frost comes up with is really damn good. So like the Battle of Crimson Skies was something I put in a timeline. I didn't have a lot of details about the location, and he went in there and made a whole thing of it. So, yeah.
There's one place specifically that I have in there that is called, that is part of, in the Soul Spires, there's another place like that called the Silent Erudi. It's basically just the knife edge cliffs that form like this narrow little valley that goes out of the place, and that's another place where the Soulforge go and stand. So they almost look like statues all along this thing, where they just go to the rise and stand in the wind and just go still. And people are like, why are they going there? And you're like, go find out. You figure it out. Good luck.
All right, it looks like most of these are just comments, not so much questions.
Oh, okay.
In this lore, or any reason why Arendor is italicized? Something about elf capitalization. Will Pyrothraxis' lair have a name?
I thought, did I give it a name?
Same for Whisperwind. I guess basically he wants to know, are dragons' lairs named? Do they have like iconic names like
Yeah. So for Whisperwind, her place, she is at the tea house, really. That is where she lives, even though most people don't know that's where she's at. That is where she's at. Pyrothraxis lives in the active heart of the volcano, which is given a name by the Kruru, the Kur, the ancient people who were the creatures who used to rule that island. And the island in their language, the name of that volcano is Kakarak, with 2 K's at the end. And he it basically, it's just called Kakarak because that's their word for the volcano and the noise it makes when it erupts. So yes.
There you go. I feel like I'm missing something. Maybe Chrysanth can specify in my DMs, but I swear I had all these questions that were in the comment section, but somebody else also posted a bunch of questions they wanted me to answer. Oh, where the hell? Maybe you remember and I'm just missing it, but yeah, let me know, I guess. If you know where those might have been. Or Mythic and Gold. Let me see. Nope. Let me see if chat's thrown any more out there. In the game, are there any resurrections a player can get when they die, or will they have to become a new character with nerfed skills? So that's kind of 2 different questions. Yes, there are ways to get resurrected. There'll probably be multiple ways you can do that, including an actual spell. But if you're not able to do that for some reason, which you might not, when you come back as a new character, what happens to you? Well, that's up to your keeper, right? There's not going to be any standard rule in the book that says how you have to do that. If your keeper is hardcore, it might say when you die and you come back as a new character, you start level 1. So you'll be a level 1 character traveling out there with your level 15 buddies, and your life's going to be very dangerous. Or they might say, come back with a level 15 character. We'll build it out and we'll come up with a backstory. That's up to you. We're not dictating too much how you run your table in the book. You're not really going to get that from us. I know a lot of current systems like to preach to you how you should do horror and who you should be worried about offending and et cetera, et cetera. We don't do any of that. We give you rules and how the system runs, and then the rest is up to you.
Yep. I'm trying to do a lot of that with some of the lore because people are like, oh, well, what about this? What about this specific? And I'm like, well, here's the basic container of the area. Here's the rumors. Here's the things that a person could easily learn from a first glance. Here's what they could learn from probably deeper study of the area or just living there for a while. But after that, and I put the rumors out there and you have some stuff and the names of places and stuff, that's where either we can expand it later with, extra adventures and, other tomes and whatnot. But it can also be a great starting point for a DM who's like, oh, I know just what to do with this tower. I know what I want to do with this. They gave me the basics. I did this. Boom. And it's just a breeding ground for people to kind of take it wherever they want.
Yeah, and
I like that more.
Some things also to note, the core rulebook is going to build enough to make a thorough system that you can play with just that book, but it might not have everything to the most in-depth level possible. For example, mounts, right? But this book is not going to have a whole bunch of advanced mount stuff. It's going to give you the basics of how to mount, what the rules are for controlling a mount, what the rules are for controlling a mount in combat, like who does like it target, things like that. And that's it for the cool. Same for like sailing, right? There's not going to be a lot of naval sections in this book in terms of seafaring and whatever.
I was just going to ask, where's all my charts on naval battles and the distance and what kind of an anchor I have to have and how many sails get damaged and what kind of a fireball?
Yeah, that's not going to be in there. There'll be some basics on, how much might a boat cost and what skills you use to travel by sea. What are the times and things like that? What is travel time at sea? But for the most part, out of the gate, that's just something you and your GM or your keeper are going to work out. In the long term, obviously we'll expand on things. So one of the future books that'll come out for the core set's going to be the Keeper's Tome, which is basically going to be the advanced Keeper's Guide, right? It's going to be a bunch of extra stuff to really refine your game. So that might go more into mounted combat. That might delve a little bit more into like very specific things like how does combat happen on the back of a gargantuan kaiju or something. It'll go deeper and give a lot more options for the keeper to add to their game. There'll be advanced player's guides, right? So there'll be expansions where you get more prestige classes, more skill trees to add to your core classes. And for the, I really don't plan to add more core classes over time, but there will be more skill trees and more advanced classes. Will typically be how we expand the game. And mounted combat might become a more specialized thing once there's an advanced, like say, cavalier type class. The core book is going to be the core function of the game. Getting more nitty gritty and expanding things will come in.
I'm going to answer this Karen question real quick. Gino, in the entry for a lovely place that Erudi wanted me to put into the world called Concordia, a group of pirates and pirate hunters, worst pirates ever. Their leader, her name is Karen. She's a gnomish woman with blue hair, said to be quite mad but highly skilled at manipulating others to get her way, chiefly through the use of her abnormally piercing voice. Under her guidance, they appear to be falling up the ladder of criminal success despite their lack of skill. She helms the largest ship in the fleet, a 36-gun behemoth dubbed the Shrill Harpy. Few pirate hunters give chase when they see it, as many of their brethren have suffered unusual bouts of foul luck after engaging with her. There's a lot more to it, but there you go. There's your Karen.
Wow. The Pirates of Concordia. Very excited about them. And I really intend for them to have things that happen during adventures. And I'm working on some other stuff that I haven't even really talked to you about yet. But I do want there to be some like ever-present threats in the setting or organizations that are almost like characters of their own that might come up in like random combat charts that aren't necessarily monster encounters. It's not like, oh, you run into a pack of ogres type thing. But for example, there's I want to do something that's kind of akin to you ever watch Firefly?
Mm-hmm.
You know what the Reavers are?
Mm-hmm.
Something similar to that, like a roving group of cannibals who maybe go around on these skiffs or have magic, and they're barbaric. They're kind of like sand people almost in a way, that are an ever-present threat. And like so there's certain areas you travel through, and they're not going to be called Reavers, but we're just going to use that name for now. That might be like, be careful going through. This is Reaver territory, that kind of stuff.
I think they'd be isolated to the high seas, basically the shores, the riverways, and that kind of stuff, or do you think we could have them also another variation of them on the sand skiffs in the Azure Kingdom?
Could be both. It depends on just how far ranging we want them to be, and how far outside of their camps or their cities that they would go.
They all follow Zaku.
They probably do all follow Zaku. That's probably the truth. Chrysanth has a comment / question that she's provided for me. It's really not so much of a question as a thank you. She said, I want to thank you for acknowledging that gnolls are double jointed. That was very brave of you to hold that stance, because we all know that they're double jointed. and nobody can tell me differently. Thank you, Chrysanth, for that support on that. Because yes, Knolls are definitely double jointed. I don't know what the hell History Eraser Button was talking about with diggy trades. They are double jointed for sure.
No digigrades. Nope. Alaska Jeff. Yeah, the good thing about this is her name is Karen, and that's basically it. After everybody forgets what a Karen is, it'll just be like a blue-haired gnome that's really shrill, and people are like, haha, that's kind of funny. That's how it'll be. They're
Perfect.
not double jointed, Chrysanth says.
They are. I wrote that they're double jointed, so they're double jointed. How are you going to tell me that they're not double jointed? Okay, I wrote what they are.
Words at you.
Yeah, that's fine. They are double jointed. Can't argue with the text. King Darth Dave says hexes versus squares. Most battle grids are going to be squares. Exploration maps will probably be hexes.
I told him it was all triangles. He didn't believe me.
Triangles could be fun. We could do triangles. I think there might be a point where we get into something like vehicular combat where we might, for that situation, it could be hexes. But even then, I think it's probably still going to be squares because there are unique circumstances where you might have a vehicle in the middle of a siege that has soldiers, right? So it's hard to mix the two.
Yeah. I'm going to do a bootleg turn on my war giraffe to get my lance ready to take down the...
Freaking war.
No war giraffes, please.
Can you run the game without a map or a board? Sure you can. It's more work on the keeper that way. And you really have to, because everything is kind of, it's grid based. So the amount of movement, how far you can use a spell or something. If you're going to cast something like a fireball, it's going to cover a certain amount of area. So at that point, it's on the keeper to decide the relativity of everything and what gets hit or whatever in their mind's eye, and the players just sort of have to consent to it. So, so it's going to be on the keeper to keep track of all that, and on the players to trust their keeper and say, all right, if he says the fireball covers 10 of us, that's not where I imagined it in my head, but he says I'm in there, I guess I get hit by it. But yeah, I mean, just you do the same with D&D, right? You don't have to use a map in D&D. It's just harder. Storyteller systems are typically better for theater of the mind. Can my character be a wood craftsman who can build a trebuchet for battle? Sure. If you put enough skills into craft woodworking, and then also maybe craft, I don't know what I'd call that, battlecraft, probably something like that. I don't see why you couldn't be. It probably would be expensive, but you could do it. Which is going to bring me to something I think I'm going to be, well, I'll talk to you a little bit about it here. So one of the things I'm running into with spells, and I kind of knew this up front, but I hadn't quite decided where I landed on how I want this to function yet. Obviously, there are spells that will work perfectly the way that I want them to, with you casting a power, it's removed from your hand, and a minute later it restores. So you can just kind of, as long as you wait the appropriate amount of time, you can always keep casting your spells. You're just limited by how often you can do them and how many you know. But there are some spells that don't fit neatly in that bucket, right? And wouldn't make sense to either. For example, a resurrection spell or a teleport spell. Those things don't make too much sense in a combat situation, or to just kind of be refilling in your hand over and over again. If you could just resurrect every minute, that would be a problem, obviously. So those particular spells, I have been going back and forth between a couple of mechanics ideas on how I wanted them to function, and one was to make them have a keyword on them, something like we'll just say a flash in the pan, but that's not the actual keyword. We'll call it a flash spell, something that when you memorize it, it's burned into your memory until you use it, and then you can't remember it anymore. It was just such a complex spell that you could only maintain that memory of it for so long. The other option is to instead just gatekeep those spells with resources. So those particular spells consume their components. Those components are typically expensive, so you can cast it as much as you can afford it, but then you're out of luck. And I was wondering what your mindset is on.
I mean, narratively, when I encounter this stuff in games, there's always the like, oh, to do a resurrection spell, we need a diamond that's worth at least this much money, which somebody just arbitrarily said, how are we going to make it hard to cast a spell? Well, diamond. I usually have it more reliant upon, this is such a powerful spell. You're not really casting it. You're imploring your deity or your patron or whatever the hell it is for this. And some people will say, oh, that doesn't feel right because what if you say no? It's like, well, you have to trust the DM that they're going to play this out with you and say, we could do this, but there has to be some sort of a cost to this. Well, there has to be some kind of a balance to it because you're upsetting what, Mordecai's laws, basically, and changing the natural order of things. So we have to make some kind of a balance. We have to make some kind of an appeasance. We have to explain it away in some way, shape, or manner. I mean, depending on how you go, you can go really simple and say, it's going to cost you a favor to the church. It's going to cost you to do this. You're going to have to do something. Or maybe you give up having, a first level or second level spells card for a while until you've paid it off. Other systems, you can burn yourself out by doing that kind of stuff and just like, oh, well, you don't have access to your high level power right now until you get an actual rest. It just really depends on how you want to play it as a DM, honestly. So
Okay.
I'm all over the place.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So that would be interesting for especially like the cleric or paladin route. Yeah. I guess I was thinking more mechanical.
Yeah, mechanically, I mean, it's really simple. You just say, like you said, you give them a gold piece amount. It's like, hey, do you have the material? Okay, you cast the spell.
Yeah, because I'm leaning
another one.
I'm leaning towards the resource route. But it was also a possibility that could be something that is it's more of a keyword thing. It's a use it spell instead of a continual spell. But maybe it's just as limited as your resources. So resurrection, you need 20,000 gold pieces or something like that to pull it off. Well, if you can keep supplying the 20,000 gold, yeah, maybe you can cast as much in the day as you're able to fit it in time-wise. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's just limited by resources.
It could be. It really comes down to the kind of game you want to play with your players. If it's really high fantasy, if it's kind of mid fantasy, low fantasy. I mean, I think, again, that comes down to the keeper. Like you said, you give them the kernels, you give them the mechanics, let them decide what they're going to do at their table. And like Chrysanth was saying in Dresden Files, in that kind of a game, you can burn yourself out. You're like, I am going to do this thing. I'm going to stop this thing no matter what. And you're like, okay, you technically can go so deep into your magic, you burned yourself out. In that game, it's a very storytelling heavy game. You don't have access to magic for possibly a session, maybe two. So it's severe, but the people I played with were like, oh my God, this was so fun. Trying to navigate the world as my character without having access to my powers. Not everybody likes that. I'm just saying, there are people who would probably walk away from a table.
Yeah, and I think there is merit to what you were talking about as well. Like something within the cleric class, maybe one of the things they get during their level up is, a miracle slot or something that, depending on, what god you're worshiping or dedicated to, there might be a specific spell for that class that's usually outside of your reach, but you can pray to your god to do, but then it's gone until you earn it back, like in a fashion that you talked about, something between you and your keeper. So something like that could be interesting as well. I'm going to think about that because I do like that concept in that sense. Got a question from Grognard with a doubt. In contrast to eschewing deeper crunch, will Legend Seeker replace the traditional crutch of perception and persuasion checks with a diegetic in-character discovery system, or remain status quo? So like in the context of like a discovery. So I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that exactly.
If you mean by the diegetic is like stuff in the world, Like, could you find some way in the world to do it rather than just doing 12? You know, instead of number crunchy stuff, like I was saying, you know, you do a whole, like, you've explained how the tolls work. You've explained how the magic system works in this net. Could I take a point of corruption, even if it's stupid to cast something without the component? Maybe. I mean,
so that's going to come down to you and your keeper. That's
Yeah.
You got to remember, at the core, this is a game, right? And games have mechanics and ways to accomplish things. So there's just no way within the context of a rule book to cover all of that random rule of cool type stuff.
Yeah.
If your keeper wants to allow you to make an argument for not needing a perception check, or if it's obvious in the context of the game that you wouldn't need a check, I don't know. If you see, just as a very basic, obvious example, if you're standing here and there's a person in front of you and a fireball hits them and they explode, do you really need a medicine check to decide if they're dead or not? No, I mean, they're obviously dead. So yeah, you can certainly make arguments to your keeper about, do I really need to persuade this guy of this, or would I actually need to roll I mean, it's pretty obvious. Or if you have an argument for a different skill, those are all things that you would argue with your keeper, not with the system. So I don't know how you would remove the, I don't know what you mean by crutch, but crutch of a perception and persuasion check. That just comes down to your keeper. Like the way I run games, for example, is if I do a combination, and this system accounts for this. I do a combination of role play, context of the scenario, and the role to determine whether or not you succeeded on, say, persuading somebody. If you're making good role play arguments, right? And again, this system accounts for us. When you go to our skills chapter and you go to the persuasion, there's a bunch of like sub rules under persuasion. It's not just a description of what persuasion's for. It's not like persuasion is used to convince people. There are actually subcategories of mechanics. So there might be a persuasion for like bribery. There might be something in there about convincing somebody to do a task. There might be something about bargaining, right, under that skill tab. And in the persuasion like core area, where it's just talking about changing somebody's mind or their attitude, there is a chart that's basically going to say, hey, if you are friendly with this person or your circumstances are favorable or whatever, you've got a penalty or plus to your roll in addition to your skill based on the surrounding scenarios. And same with deception, right? If the lie is god awful, all right, if I don't know, if you're in a vacant room where you can see everything within like 5 miles and there's no walls and no trees for people to hide about, and you tell the enemy, we've got you surrounded, that's a pretty unbelievable lie. So in those cases, on the chart for deception, under the skill, it would say if the lie is obvious or the villain has concrete evidence already that this would be a lie, -10 to the roll. The opposite could be if it's highly believable, or you've already, like, through your own gameplay, maybe planted evidence to convince these people of a lie that would normally be harder to believe, and you've done the groundwork. Now you've got a +10 to that roll. And then there's like a range in between. So yeah, there is definitely room within the natural order of just role playing, right, to make those kind of changes. Something like a perception check, that's just so subjective. There's no way really, in my opinion, to rules lawyer that. It's going to be based on the keeper, it's going to be based on the scenario, and so on and so forth.
Gino, the best brothels, as everybody knows, are in the Azure Kingdom, over near the cat market specifically. If Lost Acadia hadn't been destroyed because they were followers of Davila, then that's where you would have gone. But not so much anymore.
Sticky notes from my best friend. Somebody did ask an interesting question earlier, if there was going to be a puns-based class. I certainly think that is possible. I know Chrysanth has been in private vying for this. She really wants a punomancer type thing. So we'll work on it. Okay, listen, there's some things you can't prep enough for. And a safe and controlled implosion of a tower that's already split down the middle and barely holding together is a very difficult ask for somebody who's not trained in explosions at all. You can get some slang for a cat near the cat market.
Yeah.
Gotta love the cat market. By the way, for those who are Mythic supporters, some of you have, or most of you at this point, have submitted your Mythic characters who've crossed that 6-month mark. And I'm really excited for some of them. And there's one in particular that might have something to do with the cat market that I love the idea of. I think Disparu told me once that there's a way to set yourself up to just hit one button and the link is posted. Oh, I don't know anything about that. That's a Disparu question. That's way too advanced for my brain. I think that's it. I think we've answered. That's the last one, right, Chrysant? The Grognard with the doubt question? It looks like it. So I think that's what we'll wrap. Unless you have any last minute questions of your own.
No, I think we've answered the ones that I had, and I took a few notes and a few mental notes as well while we were talking. And I'm sure if I have more, I'll just ping you, and then after 5 DMs or so, you get back to me.
All right,
That's
yeah,
standard, right?
That's the standard. That is the standard. I think I would like to think that I've gotten better. I'd like to think that I have put in the effort to get better, but I still have some work that I could do on that front.
Most of the time, I'm trying to message you in channels that we have that are in common with some other people, so. That I think also helps because then there's the eye of Chrysant on it occasionally.
Yeah. If you get Chrysant involved, she will turn on nag mode, and that does accelerate things. Oh man, I had a thought, and I just thought, oh, so yeah, if you enjoyed this and you got questions in between this and our next Q&A, which will be 2 weeks from now, There are several ways you can submit those. One, if you're a supporter on the Patreon, you can go there and submit questions. If you're on our Discord, we have opened up the general chat area and the frequently asked question area and the discussion area to everybody, whether you're a supporter or not. And then there are more secret categories that have stuff that's being tested and viewed by our patrons first. But you can go there, you can ask questions, you can post questions on this video, or you can even post questions to Frost directly during his Frost written streams or in his comments to his videos. And we will gather questions from all those different sources, and we will answer those here. And of course, you can bring your questions here live, as you did today, and we will answer whatever we can. And it can be mechanics, it can be lore, it can be both. Throw it out there. As you may have seen already, no question is too strange. We got a very wide range of stuff today. But yeah. So Frost, where can they find you? What will you be up to?
You can find me on Moonskull and here on the Legend Seeker channel and on all my links on my link tree. Basically, I'm going to be working on lore. I'm in a few games here and there, so you'll find me in them. And occasionally you'll see me on my channel playing things and driving badly and making Chrysant and Tomix and everybody just wishing that a bear would come eat me. Just saying. They're mean. They hate me.
They are very mean. Very mean.
That's why I send Chrysant, book covers. And then she throws me puke emojis.
Well,
like, haha.
She deserves it. She deserves it. Thanks to her, the blood hag is going to be a real thing. By the way, real thing is going to be.
Hey, Grognard, there you are.
Oh, good. All right, yeah. I wasn't exactly sure what you meant by that question, and thankfully, Frost knew what you were saying.
If you got more questions, feel free. Like I said, throw them in the comments on the latest Frost written.
And not just questions, by the way. So. I know we're at close, and I was trying to wrap, but I will also throw out there, we appreciate ideas and comments too. So part of this process is, as much as I'm making the game to bring something that I want to bring to life, the goal of this is to make something for you guys. And what I've been saying from the beginning is I want this to be a game that when we make it for you, it answers only to you, our supporters and our customers. We're not answering to outside activists. And to that end, we're at the ground level of making this game. If you've got ideas or thoughts, just like Grognard, without a doubt, just as suggested, I mean, I never really thought of that particular question and how that would be arranged. And those are my immediate surface thoughts. Okay, those are my surface thoughts of, I think the mechanics speak for that, and the rest would be between you and your keeper. But now that the thoughts in my head, I might be thinking over the course of the game, and maybe something about that starts making more sense to me, right? So your comments and feedback and suggestions, we do listen to them. And there have been several cases, particularly on the Patreon side, where people have pointed something out. It could have been like a lore discrepancy or an idea or a thought of how something could work. And Frost and I and Moss, we look at these things that are said and we talk to each other about them. We're like, hey, does this make sense? Is what we're doing not making sense? Or is what this person's saying, does this make sense? And we'll discuss it and we'll evaluate it. And sometimes it results in changes. So your feedback and your comments and your ideas are just as important as your questions. We want this to be something that when it's in your hands, you guys will be excited to have and proud to have. And I know the first, I would say, like front-loaded portion of this process, I consider it kind of my alpha phase of the program, has been very kind of behind doors, working with my patrons, trying to get things solidified. But you probably see as we're going, it's becoming more and more transparent, and more things are going out in the open as we kind of solidify on what we're looking for. So to that end, yeah, your feedback is very important, because once we have those things solidified, when we put them in front of you, if we've missed something, and we might, okay, I'm far from perfect, and I know Frost is ancient and a vampire and seen it all, but even vampires get things wrong sometimes. If we
that's why we have to hide occasionally from the mobs.
Yeah. So if there's something that, God, maybe we're just an idiot and it was right there in front of our nose and we just didn't see it, you saying something could be the difference between us releasing a glaring error or not, right? So feedback is great. Please feedback. We would love more feedback than less. Even if you feel like you're oversharing or oversuggesting, or you think it's not your place, or you're nitpicking, I don't care about any of that stuff. Only thing I care about is producing a good game, and as long as our conversations are in good faith, and it's about having a conversation about the game and not, I don't know, battling ideologies or something, I'm really open to a lot. So yeah, please do share your ideas. I love seeing all that. As far as where you can find me, obviously you can find me here. Not as often as Frost currently, but hopefully you'll be seeing me here more as my schedule is kind of shifting a little bit to allow me to do more, and the material to do more public streams. But you can also find me over on Moonskull, where I'm running several games a week. And if you like rolling dice and you'd like to play some private games with me, consider checking out my Start Playing. I do private games and hang out with you guys and have a good time all the time. And one last thing I will throw out there: if you are a patron supporter, once the playtests start coming about, the way that's going to be done initially is through some controlled private games with me. So I'll be opening up like little one-shots and stuff to test material with some pre-made characters and stuff, run through those, and then we'll kind of gradually open that up more and more to more tinkering and stuff like that as we. But I think that's it. That's all I got. So thanks for hanging out, guys. We appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and we will talk to you later. Bye, guys.